Welcome to What Do I Need for My Seder Table? And really what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the various things that are particular for Pesach that you want to have ready as you're putting together the table for Pesach, and just a quick checklist to make sure that these are the things you're going to need, some of which are a little bit unusual. The first thing that is probably pretty recognizable are the candlesticks. And we're going to light candles in that window right before sunset on the very first night, and likewise on any festival. So we're going to repeat that for the second night as well. The other thing that happens on holidays is we're going to make kiddush, which is we're going to take a glass of wine or grape juice, and we're then going to fill the glass with it, and we're going to make kiddush. And kiddush really means sanctify. I'm going to make this holy. With Pesach, we actually have 4 cups of wine throughout the Seder. So we want to make sure we have enough wine, because that's 4 cups of wine per person. Some families will do 4 cups of wine for the person who is leading the Seder, and again, that's going to depend on how you're shaping it and what your particular tradition is. But I always feel better going for most case scenario, not least case scenario. So we want to make sure you have enough wine on hand, and again, or grape juice is perfectly fine, to fill 4 cups for each participant. And that's going to happen through the Seder, and we're going to know where that happens because we're following with a Haggadah. And this is just one example of a Haggadah. There are many, many, many Haggadot all over the stores to choose from, and have them around for your Seder, that everybody sitting at the table will have their own Haggadah to look at, to read from, to participate with. And really, although many of them are very unique and special in some of the interpretations they bring, most of the Haggadot are going to lead us through the Seder in a very uniform way, and it'll happen around the table of Jewish homes who are conducting a Seder. Also essential to your Seder table is a Seder plate. And that's a central plate that has the ingredients on it of the various things that we're going to be eating and smelling and tasting and looking at throughout the Seder as we move from start to finish through the Haggadah. One of the other things that we're going to need for a Seder table is at least 1 bowl of salt water. Again, it can be various shapes. It can have various amounts of salt water in it. The salt water itself is going to be used to signify the tears that were spilled in Egypt. We're going to be dipping a root vegetable into the salt water and then eating it, so that in fact we're tasting the tears. The Seder itself is a multi-sensory experience. We're going to be smelling things, touching things, tasting things, sharing things, hearing things, saying things. It's as rich an experience as we can make it. The other thing that is crucial to the Seder table and unique for Pesach is the matzah. The matzah itself looks like this. It pretty much looks like a cracker. It has usually lines and ridges that are put into it. It's baked, but clearly it's thin. And the idea is that this is the unleavened bread. This is the bread that did not rise, and we grabbed it and then left Egypt. So it's representative of the kind of bread that we would imagine our ancestors in Egypt grabbed and left quickly with. For anyone who's never tasted matzah, you're in for quite an experience, because it actually tastes pretty much exactly as it looks. It's dry, it's brittle, it's some people have a wonderful affinity to matzah. They look forward to it, they love it. Other people might as well eat the box. I mean, it tastes as it looks, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We are commanded to eat matzah at the Seder. The way that the matzah is placed on the Seder table is there are 3 matzot, which is the plural, and they are to signify the 3 components of the nation of Israel. So we have 1 matzah, which is for Kohen, the priestly class. It is covered. Another matzah is Levi, the Levite tribe. It is covered. And the 3rd matzah is Yisrael, and that is the Israelite population. We do want to separate them because they are 3 distinct components. And yet, there's a unifying element to it because they're being kept in one container. They're being kept sometimes in one piece of cloth with 3 sections. We want to designate the uniqueness of each of the components of the nation and yet the unity of the nation, so that it's 3, but it's held together as one. One of the other things that we have for the Seder table is we have a cup of wine that's placed in the center, and it's Kos Eliyahu, the cup of Elijah. It's placed in the middle of the Seder table. It's filled with wine, and it's waiting there for that moment in the Seder when we open the door and we invite Elijah the prophet to come into our homes as a guest, join us, and of course, we're offering him a glass of wine because we're all participating in the wine. It's intrinsic to the Seder. One of the newer traditions that has begun is to set next to the cup of Elijah, next to Kos Eliyahu, another glass that's called Kos Miriam, or the cup of Miriam. And that cup would traditionally be filled with water, not wine, but the idea that Miriam is so connected to the water in the book of Exodus, and Miriam was so intrinsic to the events of redemption from Egypt, that there has been a tradition growing to put onto our Seder tables a cup specifically for Miriam, and then a few words mentioned about Miriam through the course of the Seder, or perhaps toward the end, and again, just a mention of how intrinsic Miriam was to the events, and also how central women were to the events of Egypt, to the point where the rabbis in the Talmud tell us that we were all redeemed because of the righteous women of Egypt. When we look around and we see there's really a handful of things that we're going to need for the Seder table. Each one of them has its own purpose, and each one of them is going to be explained and is going to have the timing of it outlined in the Haggadah. So a Haggadah is really your central guide and your central document. It's a wonderful experience of sight and sound and taste and touch and smell. So we won't want to rush it. We want to really enjoy it as we do exactly what the rabbis told us to do, and that is to truly experience what it felt like to start in Egypt and then move our way through to redemption.